All right, finally, we are live. It took a couple minutes. We had a little technical difficulty there, but I think we finally got it all worked out. And how are you tonight, Gramps?
Pretty good.
He's actually right here with me for a change, and we're not on location. Let's do a quick mic check, make sure that our microphones are working. Yep. All right, we have verified that our microphones are working. So anyway, we are on a trip to Florida, and we're down here visiting with Gramps, and decided that we would do a live since we could actually do it together instead of in two different locations. So how have you been doing?
All right, doing good. Everything's going along pretty smooth. How about yourself?
Well, we've recently passed a milestone on the channel, and just recently exceeded, and now have 6,000 subscribers.
All right. Congratulations.
Appreciate it. And we working hard to try to get to that magical 10,000. They say once you get 10,000 that the ball starts even going even faster. So, well, that's enough chit chat for there. And for now on that, let's talk about some of the topics that we have put together tonight. You've heard Gramps and I talk about in the past how the automotive industry is not listening to the consumers. They are continuing to put out 60, 80, $100,000 trucks and automobiles, and they're pushing for the electrification of every vehicle out there. Well, jokingly, I say this, maybe they're finally listening to us. Because one of the things I have on topic tonight we're going to be looking at is the Toyota is bringing back the compact truck, and Honda is backing off of their EV vehicles and moving and looking towards the hybrid vehicles. So let's go ahead and jump into the first topic we was the Toyota small compact truck. If I can get my fingers to work right here, we'll add this up there. Toyota is to start building a cheap compact pickup truck, and they say it is all but a done deal at this point. We'll take a look at this real quick. That little truck right there, I actually own one and got it from Gramps here. What year was that truck?
80. 1983. 83, I'm sorry.
83. And you got it from a friend who'd had it since it was new.
Yeah.
Super reliable. 20, I think was it 20R or 22R? I don't remember.
20R.
But super, super dependable. Let's scroll down here and look where it talks about it. It says Toyota is building it. Good news is a small truck will happen. Decisions have been made. The question is when we can slot it out. It's not a matter of if at this point. Ericsson tells Motor Trend, we've studied it a lot. We're dedicated to it, and we're going to figure it out, and we're going to make it work. One of the things he said in this article was that they have so much going on right now that they don't have enough engineering capacity to be able to commit enough time to develop the truck. But one of the other things that he talked about is that it's going to be built on a platform, and it is the TNGA, which is not a new platform for Toyota. It's been around since 2015. The TNGA, if you're not familiar with it, is a Toyota new global architecture, and it's basically where they use the same underpinnings, the same powertrain, same transmissions, and then they reconfigure the vehicle around that, and they're able to save money. And it went on to say that they're able to build vehicles with better handling and use components across the whole line. So what do you think about that, Gramps, that they're going to come back out with a new small truck.
They keep it affordable. They'll sell like hotcakes. You know, use your, I saw, who was it I told you that had the Ford, I think it was Ford, was looking at a small pickup, and their navigation system, rather than having a built-in navigation system, you could just take your cell phone, set it up on the desk, and use it as your navigation system. You know, like put in what you want to. And I mean, you already got a phone, so you don't really need to pay just to have something built into the truck when you can hook your phone up there and use your phone.
Right.
It's right there in front of you, you know, and that's, if Toyota does stuff like that to save, cut down on the not as many bells and whistles, you know.
Right. And we've long said that they need a work truck. They need something that is rugged and dependable and gets decent fuel mileage and has a bed on the back. It doesn't need anything fancy. Cloth doesn't need cloth seats, vinyl floor mats. Wash it out with a water hose and use it to work. The one of the Toyota Tacomas starts at $60,000. That TRD. It's a $60,000 truck. Everybody doesn't need a $60,000 truck. So, you know, that is something positive coming in from Toyota. But the downside is, it said it's going to be at least another year before it gets rolled out. So, you know, but be looking for that. That'll be something positive come from Toyota.
They probably got a lot of the factory engineering, factory part of it. It wouldn't be that big a deal to swap over from one, since they're going to be using components. You know.
Yes, from other vehicles.
It wouldn't be that big a deal to stop building one car on this same line. You know, say, okay, number 500 car, when he gets through, we're going to swap over to the truck and start running the trucks through.
Yeah, and that was what I was reading about, that TNGA that they had developed back in 2015, and that was one of the reasons for that. It makes that process a lot easier, and I think they said that they are currently have 40 models of their vehicle using that TNGA platform. So, all right, let's shift gears. We have recently been looking at a recall that came out from GM that goes from 2021 till it's either currently 25 or it may have been just last year, 24 vehicles. But regardless, it is 600,000 vehicles have been recalled. 600,000 with vehicles with the 6.2 liter engine have been recalled from GM. I don't know what this is going to end up costing them, but let's take a quick look at this news article. This comes from the Automotive Dive, and real quickly, the GM Motors has recalled 597,630 SUVs and pickups equipped with the 6.2 liter V8 due to a manufacturing defect involving connecting rods and or crankshaft that can lead to a catastrophic engine failure, according to the NHTSA. The recall follows a January investigation opened by the NHTSA after the agency received 39 reports of engine failures in GM engines, as well as 3 other prior investigations by the automaker, which identified over 28,000 complaints of potentially related to the issue. And one source I looked at said that there were 14,000 reported cases of where the vehicle's engine completely gave up and left them on the road, completely locked up, or I don't know exactly. They didn't say exactly what happened to them, but they wouldn't run. And that's a lot of vehicles to be losing engines to. The recall included vehicles. There it is. It's from 2021 to 2024. The Suburban, the Tahoe, Silverado 1500, the Yukon XL, Sierra 1500, Cadillac Escalade and Cadillac ESV models. There has been a lot coming out on this in the last, week or so? Hadn't it been?
Yeah.
Something like that. I don't know if you follow him. The Motor Oil Geek. Gramps and I watched the Motor Oil Geek with Lake Speed, and he recently did a video on it, and I have that up right here, and we'll take a quick look at that. Let's see. Let's let my fingers do the walking here and get him pulled up. And I have a few timestamps that I'm going to try to hit and control as we go through this, because I don't want to go through his entire video. If you want to see this entire video, it's titled Stop Following OEM Oil Advice, and it's over, like I said, at the Motor Oil Geeks channel. He's very good at what he does, and he is he's quite the scientist. So let's take a look. And
GM recently issued a recall on Chevy, GMC, and Cadillac truck and SUVs that feature the L87 6.2 liter V8 engine. And even if you don't own one of those, it reveals really important information. Hi, I'm Lake, the Motor Oil Geek. Let's break down this recall notice and how it busts an internet motor oil myth. There's some really interesting information here when it comes to motor oil. It's kind of the key of this whole recall. So let's set some backstory. There's been an investigation into rod bearing failures. So this particular recall focuses on the 2021 through 2024 model years. Now, what's interesting is it's a voluntary recall, but they're mandating it on unsold inventory. So if there happens to be a 21 to 2024, one of these vehicles with an L87 engine sitting on a dealer lot, they're supposed to do
NASCAR, it's on Prime. Come on!
Stream the Coca-Cola 600. It's on Prime.
With Geico, we can easily bundle home and car insurance and save even more.
Yeah, just like breakfast burrito.
There isn't too much hot sauce.
two things. First, there's an inspection process we're going to cover in a minute. And then there's a fix. Now, that fix actually involves changing the viscosity of the motor oil. So what's interesting about this recall is it begins with the notification of an inspection procedure. So the service procedure is to check, inspect for DTC P0016. What this is an alignment code between the crankshaft and the camshaft. So the camshaft turns at 50% of crankshaft speed. This is a V8 engine with a single camshaft. That camshaft is in a V above the crankshaft. Because there's variable valve timing in some of these engines, it also measures where the crankshaft is. So the alignment between the camshaft and the crankshaft is being measured in real time by the engine. So what they're doing is using the computer to check for a misalignment between the camshaft and the crankshaft. If there's a lower end problem with one of the bearings in the cranks or the rods, it can create a misalignment between the crankshaft and the camshaft. It can see that deviation. So that is the go, no go that GM is using for their inspection procedure. If there's a failure in progress, they're saying we can see that misalignment.
You must have
therefore
moved,
just replace the engine essentially. But if there's not a misalignment, if the failure hasn't happened yet, they're taking corrective action by changing the motor oil viscosity. And this is where things get really, really interesting when you're the motor oil geek. So let's go ahead and talk about what they're changing here with the viscosity. So these engines called for.
All right. So that kind of gives you an overview. He went to good detail there and explained what he did a good job of explaining what's going on. So I didn't want to get in there and try to rehash everything he said. He does a good job of bringing the facts to the table, and we'll go ahead and like I said, I have got the timestamps to go ahead and begin looking at what the fixes are. So let's go ahead and we'll zip ahead right about there, and we'll play from 6:45 to 9:30. So
to the zero
let him
W40,
talk.
it's increasing bearing film thickness. It's giving their engine a better chance to live because something's gone wrong, right? Obviously, and I'm not going to speculate as to what happened with the cranks or the rods or the bearings. So there's actually no need to speculate because hot off the presses is the NHTSA recall report, which shows there are two contributing factors to this recall issue. Number one is sediment in the connecting rod and crankshaft oil galleries. Basically,
And
that's
what he's
just
talking about
sediment and
there is the
debris
sediment, and that's
in the
exactly
engine,
why I
which
did
like
the
we've
early
shown
oil
before.
changes.
Early oil
That's-
changes are really important on a brand
It
new
was
engine
better than
because the
last time, man.
highest amount of wear
Oh, I didn't
is
see anything.
during engine break-in. So you don't want extra junk in the engine that can cause issues. So doing this early oil change is actually helpful in terms of getting that junk out of the engine, especially
Still
because
hard to
there's
believe that they didn't
extra
flush
junk
them engines
in
to
the
get that crap
wrong
out of there.
places. Number
Well, I think what
two
he's talking about
is
is
crankshaft
as the engine is
specification
breaking
and
in,
surface
that's where the deposit,
finish.
that's where the sediment's
Rougher
coming from.
surfaces need greater film thickness. So this oil change procedure that GM is doing, not just changing the oil alone, but changing the viscosity of the oil, is actually addressing both of these issues. Get the junk out of the engine by doing an oil change. Number two, increase the viscosity, increase that oil film thickness to help compensate for that rougher surface finish on the crankshaft with the short block on these engines. By increasing
Let's
the
just
viscosity.
pause right there. You know, he's talking about they're going to the thicker oil film to compensate for the rougher surface finish on the crankshaft. That still throws up flags for me. Is why do we have a rougher surface finish on a crankshaft? Every crankshaft I've ever dealt with in all of my years is supposed to have almost a mirror polish on it.
Mm-hmm.
So, that doesn't make any sense to me. But we'll carry on.
Viscosity of the oil, they're able to use tribology to help solve the problem to prevent the engine from failing. Okay, so that's the takeaway from this recall because that's all they're changing. We can see right here in the recall notice, if they don't detect the misalignment between the camshaft and the crankshaft, what does the recall tell them to do? Just change the oil, drain out the 020, take off the filter, take off the 020 fill cap, put in 0W40 supercar oil, because that's what they have, put on a 040 fill cap, and then put a new filter on. And the filter they're putting on is the exact same filter that just came off. So they're not changing anything with the filter. And oh, by the way, they need to put an addendum in the owner's manual to now say use 0W40 versus 0W20. Now, here's the thing. The 040 and 020 both allow the vehicle to start at negative 35 degrees Celsius, because that's what a 0W means. And we won't cover all the details. In fact, I'm going to leave a link in the description box below for 3 of our previous videos that will be really helpful for understanding the context of all of this. Those are our last video about the film strength testers and why they don't tell the truth.
All right, so we've got one more segment here of where he talks. Let's get to that timestamp, and it's right in here.
Increasing the viscosity to increase our film thickness to protect the bearings. That's the key takeaway from this recall. And in that, an internet motor oil myth just got busted. And what is that myth, you're asking? It's that you can't use a viscosity higher than what the OEM recommends. That somehow or another, it's going to damage the engine if you're using, say, a 0W40 as opposed to a 0W20. I understand there's a lot of room for confusion here, but I think we need to understand is why are the low viscosity oils being spec'd here in the US anyway. And
Since 1983,
Well, gotta
Nissan
figure another
has been
way.
assembling award-winning vehicles for you right here in America. And
why I said that was very specific. You can do some Google searching and find out that in other countries where there's not the EPA and there's not
that's
a
interesting when he
corporate
talks about
average
right
fuel
there.
economy
In other
target
countries, they
that
use
needs
a
to be
thicker oil.
hit, the exact same engine
And he
somewhere
talks
else in the world,
about here in
the
just
owner's
a second
manual will
what it's all
call
really
for a
about.
higher viscosity oil. For example, I actually have a lot of experience with this LT family of engine, the 6.2 liter direct injection V8. I actually was part of a program with General Motors and Oak Ridge to determine how low a viscosity could you go in that engine and still protect the engine. That the 0W12 super special oil we developed, that was for this same family of engine, the 6.2 liter V8 direct injection. That engine initially called for 5W30. Today, like we said, they were calling for 0W20, but I guess really today, now it's 0W40. Just an FYI, all versions of Mobil 1 0W40, and there are 4 different ones, are now lower calcium formulas that are safe for direct injection engines. So they went from 530 down to 020, now up to 0W40 to fix the bearing problem. The reason for that change in going to the 0W20, 016, 012, 08s, like in my daughter's car, is because of fuel economy. And we saw that with that test we did with GM and Oak Ridge. Putting a 0W12 in that engine, that even though it called for a 5W30, we improved the fuel economy in the EPA drive cycle. We saw a bigger gain with the ionic liquid formula version in the city drive cycle that's typically more lower temperature. And that's where you get the bigger advantage of that lower viscosity oil. Because at say 20 degrees Celsius, that 020 is a lot thinner than even the 0W40. That thinner oil is less drag. That's going to be better fuel economy. When you get to the highway drive cycle, that is a hotter oil temperature, there's less of a gain. Now, in this case, with the GM and Oak Ridge study, this was a highly friction modified, really wild oil. So we saw some pretty big gains because of the unique chemistry of that oil. But in general terms, that lower viscosity gives you more of a gain in the city drive cycle, less of a gain on the highway side. But in either case, lower viscosity means better fuel economy, and that's why the OEMs are recommending lower viscosity grade oils. It's not because the engine is going to blow up if you put a thicker viscosity oil in it. Obviously, and GM just proved that with this recall. Besides low viscosity oils, technologies like auto start stop and displacement on demand are just ways of gaining fuel economy in.
All right, so there you go. That's all we're going to play of that. And if you, like I said, if you want to watch the whole video, you can. It's very interesting. But he basically, what he was saying there is it's a myth about being able to put thicker oils in engines, and I learned some stuff there. And he went on to say that if you're going to run a thicker oil to try to provide better protection in your engine, don't do it blindly, that you need to test your engine oils and get a base number, and then if you're going to run the thicker oil, and then test it and see if you actually had any improvement. Because he said the problem with running thicker oils is that your engine temperature can actually be higher, and you can actually induce more wear. What you're currently doing may be working, but that it's not going to just instantly blow your engine up by running a thicker oil. So, and it all comes down to CAFE standards and fuel economy. So we're going to move along from that, and that seems to be what GM is going to do to try to fix their problem, and that is add thicker engine oil to their engine. So one of the things Gramps found, and we have discussed these EV vehicles and how they are not necessarily viable for the United States right now. It's an alternative to replace an ICE engine, internal combustion engine. We've often said we need to go hybrid. But in this video, you found, what, last week?
Yeah.
That in, I think it's Kenya.
Yeah, that's Mobilis is one of the companies, and I can't pronounce this other company. They did.
Oh, I some of these names I don't even try, but yeah, it's in. They have developed an electric vehicle that plugs in and does really well. And I've got a couple of clips from it. We'll take a look at it. And biggest thing is $5,000.
Yeah, they're getting it ready. Just put it out in certain countries. I don't know
All right.
when you'll be ready for
And
prime
let's go to
time
this-
here.
Go to this next timestamp, and this one's a little shorter, so than some of the others we've been playing. Well, got bit by an ad again. In just a second, guys, and we'll get this off screen and get to what we were trying to watch.
See that name in the background? And his head.
Mm-hmm.
Come back up again.
Well, it does not appear that it is sharing.
In the first place. The breakthrough came
There.
when Mobius engineers asked a
Sorry for
simple
the
question.
confusion there, guys.
What if we
may
designed
have
an
screwed
EV from
up
scratch?
completely up. Let's back up here.
Before they sell out in America.
Try
The
that
first
again.
shipment of 10,000 units is already 80% reserved, and they haven't even officially launched here yet. But the most shocking part isn't the price. It's how this African company solved the EV problems that stumped Silicon Valley engineers for decades, and why Detroit and Tokyo are scrambling to catch up to Nairobi. Mobius Motors didn't set out to build an electric vehicle. They set out to solve a transportation problem. Founded in Nairobi in 2010, they initially focused on rugged, affordable internal combustion vehicles for African roads. But in 2019, everything changed. We realized the entire Western approach to EVs was wrong, explains Mobius founder Joel Jackson. Companies like Tesla were adding technology to solve problems that shouldn't exist in the first place. The breakthrough came when Mobius engineers asked a simple question. What if we designed an EV from scratch for affordability rather than trying to make an expensive vehicle cheaper? The result is the Mobius E1, a vehicle that shatters every convention of electric vehicle design. Instead of a complex skateboard platform with thousands of parts, the E1 uses a revolutionary monocoque design with just 370 components. For comparison, a Tesla Model 3 has over 10,000 parts. The E1 weighs just 1,800 pounds, less than half of a Tesla Model 3, which dramatically reduces battery requirements. The entire vehicle is designed around efficiency and simplicity, rather than luxury and complexity. Western manufacturers are selling smartphones on wheels, says Jackson. We're selling affordable, practical transportation that happens to be electric. The performance metrics are what really shock industry experts. The E1 delivers 250 miles of real-world range, accelerates from 0 to 60 miles per hour in 8.7 seconds, reaches a top speed of 85 miles per hour, fully recharges in 4 hours on a standard outlet, and comes with a 10-year battery
Fully
warranty.
recharges in 4
These aren't
hours,
groundbreaking
10-year
numbers
battery
until you
warranty.
consider the price, $5,000.
If
That's
you
not
get-
after
if you get it,
incentives or
do all that. They'll, I'm sure, sell quite a few of them.
Yeah, I mean, and there again, what we talked about: basic transportation, simplicity. They said there's 370 components compared to 10,000 components of the Tesla electric vehicle. Which, I mean, don't get me wrong, Tesla's vehicles are great, but not everybody needs that. I mean, people need transportation to get back and forth to the doctor. People need transportation to get back and forth to the grocery store, to work. 250-mile range. That would be, for me, I could drive the vehicle, it's 50 miles a day back and forth to work. I could drive it every day back and forth to work for 5 days.
Yeah, well, if I left my house and drove to your house, when I got to Gurney, I'd be out of it.
You'd be out of gas money by the time you get to Gurney.
Yeah.
It's like 250 miles, but
Yeah.
you could drive it one way to
Yeah.
my house. But what did they
Plug
say?
it back in,
Plug it back in,
come
and,
back.
and plug in, and in 4 hours it's supposedly fully charged.
Mm-hmm.
So, that was RJ's Garage is where we saw that video. I like to give where I get my video information. I want to give them credit because they put the video out. So RJ's Garage, if you want to go watch that entire video, it's about 20 minutes long. I just wanted to cover the highlights, and it's making a point of something that we always talked about. Simplicity is better. Okay, we don't need all the bells and whistles. We need something for the masses. Just like in the early 80s, you get a Toyota Corolla, you get vinyl seats in a vinyl format, an AM radio, and
If you wanted air conditioning, you could get it installed, but it didn't normally come in the car.
right. You wanted air conditioning, you rolled the windows down with hand crank roll down windows.
But you could put it, because I put in many air conditioners, but they didn't just show up at the dealership with air conditioner hanging under there. You had
No.
to put it in.
Right. And it was vinyl seats and vinyl formats, and it was basic transportation for people, and they were super reliable. And I know we really need to get back to some of that.
But with all the creature comforts that all of us have become accustomed to,
We're addicted to them. The 9-way adjustable seat that I've got out here in this Lexus that we have now, lumbar support, leg lift, tilt, heated, ventilated. It's got all the stuff. Yeah, I'm addicted to that stuff, but I pay for that stuff, but it's not necessary.
I was going to say you could, if you wanted to get into more that these cars that are being developed in Africa, all you can do is Google the 10 best EVs in Africa or 10 best manufacturers, EV manufacturers, and it'll pull up a list of people that are working on it in Africa, trying to, they're trying to do like everybody else, get in there so they can get some of them bucks.
They're trying to get some market share.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody's trying. You have the Chinese, you get the Europeans. Everybody's trying to get in on it. But and that brings us to our next topic, kind of, sort of. Honda has been in on the EV game, and we're going to take a quick look at an article from Honda. They just made a recent announcement. They are pulling back from doing their EV vehicles. They are, we'll just read, this is from the Automotive Dive. Let's get to the headline there. Reducing EV investments by 21 billion, well, that's with a B, billion, and shifting focus back to hybrids. Why are they doing this? It says Honda Motor Company is reducing its investments in electric vehicles through 2030 by 3 trillion yen, 20 billion US, to focus more on launching new hybrids Global CEO Toshihiro Mibe announced in a press release in a press briefing Tuesday. The announcement comes after the automaker this month postponed its planned $11 billion investment to build EVs in Canada. Honda cited a market slowdown and changes in environmental regulations, which were the main drivers of the EV sales, as well as trade policies of various countries, including the US and Europe, for its decision to focus more on hybrids. To support the plans, Honda aims to develop new hybrid powertrain technology, advanced driver assist systems, and other intelligent technologies for the new vehicles it plans to launch from 2027 onwards. The company views hybrid models as crucial while the auto industry continues its transition to more widespread EV adoption over the long term. Well, it doesn't say this here, but what I'm gleaning from that is that was just quick double speak for the EVs ain't selling, so we ain't investing any money in them. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. What's the problem with EV adoption here right now, as the current EV vehicle stands, in your opinion?
Limited charging, limited availability, convenient availability outside of being in town. If you lived out in the country ways, you may run into a problem.
And you can put a charging station in your house. What about that?
Put one in?
Or have one put in?
Yeah. You can do that, but I mean,
what's it cost? I'm playing devil's advocate here.
I don't know how much it costs. Costs as much as the car, probably.
That's, in some cases, it's thousands of dollars. And it's not a free ride. It's not free. Your power bill is going to go up. So, no, it may not go up as much as you would be spending on gas, but once you factor in the initial investment into putting the charge station in, and then what it costs every month, it's going to be many, 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 many years before you recoup that as to what you would have had with an ICE vehicle. Them's are just the facts. We're just not ready here in the U.S. to be EV driven. Sure, I think it would work in some cities, and it looks like the African, what's the name of that company? Mobus, is that what you said?
Mobus. Mobus.
That's easy for you to say.
No, it's not. Okay, but
Your tongue in front of your eye teeth couldn't hear what you were saying.
something like that.
Well, they seem to be on the right path to moving toward electrification. But I've said it before, but 250 miles is not enough for me to be able to hop in a vehicle and drive across the country. And, even if it is 4 hours charge time to be back to full charge and go 50 miles, 250 more miles.
Yeah, but that's probably counting a dependable, not, some places it's almost like a 110 volt outlet. You stick it, you have to charge. The charging system is not like, not too far from here. They put in 2 the other day. It took them probably took them about a month to come and put it in, dig up the parking lot, run all the power lines down there and put in the meters and then put in the charging station. Probably took them a month to do that. And there was 3 or 4 electrical vehicles down there, working on it all day for a month. So
For 2 charge stations.
yeah, 2 charge stations. They were right under the power line, right overhead. They put up a pole, run wires down through there. It was amazing what they had to do to get 2 stations put in.
2 stations took a month to put in. And I know once we mobilize on this thing and get going, they'll get better at it and faster. But, there again, it is still not a free ride. You have to have a credit card or some kind of form of payment associated when you roll up there to plug into that thing. You've got to you got to have some kind of way to pay for it. And I've heard stories of $12 to $20, you know. And yes, that is less than the 50 it takes to fill up that Lexus, because the Lexus that I drive takes premium, and 18 gallons of premium is about $50. So yeah, you will eventually save money, but it takes a while. But you got to get past the initial cost of the vehicle, initial cost of the charging. You know, we've already covered that, and we're starting to double back and beat a dead horse. So, all right. So where are we, Gramps? Let's take a quick look and see what we've got here. We have been going for 44 minutes here, thereabouts, about 40 minutes. Well, Gramps had something he had asked me to watch last week, and well, this is kind of a little fun segment, and you don't often see these cars, almost never, and especially this one. This was one of 29. This is something he showed me just a little while ago when we started watching it, so I'm going to share a little bit of it with you here on live before we get out of here this evening. This is a $10 million barn find. And this is over on Jay Leno's garage. So let's take a quick.
Very unusual today, buried treasure. You know, when you think of buried treasure, everybody thinks of doubloons and gold bars and a pirate's chest and all that kind of stuff. This is what buried treasure looks like now. Does that look like $10 million? It's pretty close, but that's what it's worth. This is probably, at least in the last few years, the most famous classic car find. Well, also not a find. It's a barn find. Everybody knew where the barn was. Everybody knew this was in the barn. But for some reason, the owner, Rudy Klein, who owned a junkyard here in Los Angeles, and it was a true junkyard. It wasn't like a restoration place. It was a junkyard. He would buy all sorts of exotic cars and just put them away. Some he left outside. Some were covered like this one. This is an extremely rare car, 1956 Mercedes-Benz alloy gullwing. That means it's a competition car, and it's not just an alloy body. When the gullwing was being developed, they wanted to make a special sort of racing version, so they made the lightweight aluminum body as well as engine performance was increased a bit, different suspension, rudge wheels. This has everything that you would expect to find in buried treasure. I mean, it is an unusual car. It's one of only 29 built. It's exactly as it's been for the last...
He still doesn't remember us, Bruno.
Fabuloso. Fabuloso. The accident.
60 years. Rudy Klein was a character, one of those odd sort of people. You know, I meet this a lot in the car world. I meet guys that want to have a car. They don't restore it or keep it. They just want to have it and put it away, you know. And that's kind of what he did. He had Porsches, he saw Griffo, I mean, all kinds of exotic cars. And he didn't really do much with any of them. He might have driven them once in a while or started them up, but for the most part, again, some were left outside, some were in lean-tos or sheds on his property in sort of a rough area of Los Angeles, downtown. You'd think that parts would have been stolen, but apparently not. The other odd thing, this car, Rudy saw it in 1976. I think he went to Florida to one of the races, Sebring or something, and he paid $30,000 for it, which is a lot of money in 1976, because in 1969, 1970, when I worked at the Mercedes-Benz dealer, we had a guy trade one of these in. We gave him $5,500 for it. My boss turned around and sold it about 2 weeks later for $7,500 and thought, well, that's it. You will never make that kind of a profit on a used car ever again. It just seemed unbelievable, a $2,000 profit on a car. But he did. But the prices were going up fast. By the time the 70s came along, it was $30,000, which is about what it would have cost. You know, when I came to Los Angeles in the early 70s, I went down to a car dealership on Sunset Boulevard, and there's a Ferrari GTO, the GTO 62 in the window. And how much is that? The guy goes, 40 grand. I go, oh man, 40 grand. I mean, it was $40,000. Now it's, I think the last one sold for $72 million. but that's what it cost. There were times when these were just old cars. But this was always a desirable car, even from the day it left the factory, even when it got used and abused and then sold. $30,000 in 1976 for this was a lot of money. So Rudy knew his cars. He knew what he was buying because this had all the options. And, you know, as a barn find, as a piece of buried treasure, it's what everybody's looking for. For some reason, it's probably worth more than if it was restored, because people have their own, oh, it's exactly as it left the factory. And it really is. This car was originally black. Somebody painted it. But I think if you, I think you can get to the black paint underneath this. I think the new owner is just going to get it running and restore it and maintain it, which I think is a great thing to do. You know, I grew up in the era of Pebble Beach where guys had tweezers and they were pulling pieces of grass out between the treads, you know, and everything had to be perfect. I like this new preservation sort of thing because you get to see and hear the car as it actually existed. But just goes to show you, a lot of this stuff is still out there. This is one of 29 alloy cars. I think this is number 26, if I'm not mistaken. And it's the only one that's unrestored. You know, if you're one of those purists, you want to find one, but you want to restore it your way, this is the only one you can do it with, because this has never, ever been restored. And the factory will tell you, they have records of all of them. That over there is a Tabalago. That's a 1952. They built, I think, 19 or 20 of those, and that's the only unrestored one of those. When I found that one, oh, people went crazy. Oh my God, the Tabalago, look at the same thing. It's the only one with bumpers on it and all the original stuff. So it's out there. These things are out there. And when collectors hear about it, you know, boy, they smell blood in the water. They got to have it. So for $10 million. But the nice thing is it went to a real enthusiast. It went to someone who wants to preserve history. And I think that's important. You know, it's like a lot of times rich guys buy stuff because they want to have more Ferraris or more Maseratis than anybody. That's not the case with this. This is a real piece of history, a real piece of Mercedes history, racing history. This is 60-year-old dirt. I mean, I'm sure there's somebody scooping this up in an envelope, and here's the actual dirt that was on the Mercedes. I want $5,000 for this. You know, I mean, that's going to happen. Here's the other odd part. This car was 100% complete. For some reason, Rudy sold somebody the bumpers, somebody else a headlight assembly, somebody else bought the shift knob. They weren't stolen.
The crazy thing is, he's right. Somebody's
Why would you do that? Why would you
want
take
the
parts
barn
off it? It's one of those mysteries. These are the Rudge wheels that came with it. It's interesting, you know. The Rudge wheels, I believe, were heavier than the stock wheels, but the thing was you could change them quicker because of the knockoff. And they were stronger. They were stronger. This is a lot lighter than the stock car. And as I said before, it's not just the body that's lighter. Everything about the car, people went through it. I believe the red interior, it looks remarkably well, considering that, again, it was not out in the elements, but certainly not preserved. There's a bit of a ding back here where Rudy was driving the forklift and banged into it. I'm like, oh my God, what are you doing? Yeah, very odd. But it's all there. It's 100% complete. I mean, it's...
Pensacola Bay homeowners. Right now, the bad news. Pensacola Bay home.
All right, guys. Just wanted to share a little fun thing right there at the end. You want to check that out, you go over to Jay Leno's Garage, and it was under the $10 million barn find. I'm not sure the name of the video. Let's take a quick gander. The exact name. Yeah, $10 million barn find. Jay Leno's rarest Mercedes Gullwing ever discovered. So, what have we kind of learned tonight? Nothing new, really. But we need to get back to some simple basics.
Yep. Some people are working on it, just they haven't brought it to fruition just yet.
But we're getting there. Will EV eventually take over the world? I doubt it completely. We're still going to have gas and oil. It'll still be big things, I believe. Just just the way it is. It's just the nature of the beast. Well, I appreciate you spending your time to come along with us on this live. I don't know how many people we had live. We didn't have any commenters. It is Memorial Day weekend. And you remember those that gave it all, and thank them for their service. So with that, everybody have a nice holiday, and we will catch you next time.